Most crises hit an organization from the outside: a sudden market crash, a disruptive competitor, a broken supply chain. We know how to face those. We build walls, we pivot, we rescue what we can. But an internal threat plays by entirely different rules. Dangerous internal forces weaponize your own procedures, hierarchy, and HR manuals, turning the organization's safeguards into a protective shield against accountability. So, what do you do when the most toxic element in the room is structurally entrenched? How do you remove a leader or a problem that has made itself procedurally impossible to touch? The answer is not to break the rules, or even to ignore them. You have to locate the precise point where the organizational rulebook simply runs out. This chart maps out the ultimate untouchable system. In Hindu mythology, King Hiranyakashipu secured a divine boon making him immune to almost everything. He could not be killed by a human or by an animal, not by day and not by night. Not inside a building, nor outside one, not on land, water, or in the air. He mapped every conventional threat and closed the door on all of them. The system appeared flawless until his own son, Prahlada, refused to bow to it. Prahlada maintained his devotion to the god Vishnu despite endless torture. He proved that before any entrenched system can be dismantled, someone must first have the courage to openly refuse compliance. Pushed to a breaking point, the king pointed to a column in his palace hall and demanded to know if Vishnu was inside. When he struck it, the divine cracked the stone wide open and stepped out in a form the universe had never seen: Narasimha, the man-lion. Narasimha grabbed the king and carried him to the doorway, neither inside nor outside. It was dusk, neither day nor night. He placed the king on his lap, neither earth nor sky. And he ended the king's life using only his bare claws, meaning no weapons were required. Not a single condition of the boon was violated. The man-lion succeeded because he operated entirely within the undefined space that the law never thought to address. Look closely at your own company, and you will find people protected by the exact same kind of structural armor. Bad actors entrench themselves behind airtight contracts, legacy precedent, and institutional inertia, deflecting any conventional attempt to hold them accountable. To bypass that armor, a leader must locate the threshold. This is the narrow gap between what corporate policy explicitly prohibits and what the drafters of that policy never imagined they needed to write down. If you try to push an entrenched problem through standard performance improvement plans or committee reviews, you will lose. Those are the exact weapons the bad actor prepared for. You need an intervention form that does not exist in the standard playbook, but the rescue only comes after the stand is taken. We call this the Prahlada principle. Ethical courage is the mandatory precondition. Someone has to absorb the personal cost of pointing out the failure out loud, or the structural intervention will never happen. When you do find that unconventional path, it has to be absolutely defensible. You cannot rely on a cheap technicality or a shady workaround. The action must flawlessly respect the core values and spirit of the organization. True leadership in this mode requires finding a path that steps entirely outside standard procedure while remaining completely, irreproachably ethical. In 2001, Enron stood as the energy equivalent of an untouchable king. Structurally, the company was meticulously designed to make its own accountability impossible. The leadership team insulated themselves with dizzying layers of financial complexity. They compromised their external auditors and built an internal culture that actively suppressed dissent. Then came Sherron Watkins, an Enron vice president. She saw the massive accounting fraud holding the company together, but every standard reporting channel was blocked or managed by the perpetrators themselves. So she found the threshold. Watkins bypassed the compliance department entirely and wrote a direct, detailed memo to the chairman, Kenneth Lay. It was a technically legitimate channel that sidestepped the entire defensive perimeter the executives relied upon. This chart maps the red flags known to Enron's board, tracking internal knowledge of their financial deficit. Watkins' memo sits right on this timeline. By stepping outside expected procedure, her document became the central evidence investigators used to tear down the facade. An untouchable system only feels invincible until someone maps its defenses, finds exactly where the procedure stops, and strikes from that precise spot. Removing the bad actor is only half the job. Real structural leadership means looking at the wreckage and rebuilding the environment so that the exact same fraud cannot happen twice. The rubble of Enron directly led the United States Congress to pass the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, mandating strict new financial disclosures and overhauling corporate governance nationwide. These new laws acted as a fresh, solid pillar. They explicitly patched the structural vulnerabilities and the reporting blind spots that Enron's executives had exploited. True leadership focuses on designing a structural architecture that makes an untouchable threats return mathematically impossible. This graphic summarizes the 5 principles: intervene decisively, recognize arrogance, protect truth-tellers, apply precise justice, and serve ethical balance. Look at your organization's most untouchable problem today. What structural boon protects it? And where is the threshold you can use to bypass it? Organizational survival depends on leaders who possess the ethical courage to confront whatever the rulebook fails to protect. But what happens when the massive, explosive conflict is over and you are left with an impossibly large goal and almost zero resources? Next time, we move from the fury of the man-lion to the strategic restraint of Vamana, the dwarf, and the power of turning your own limitations into your greatest leverage.